Tonight, you travel quietly back in time, slipping away from the present with no urgency at all, and arriving gently into a Japanese city as night has already taken hold, where the air has cooled, the streets have softened, and the day has fully released its grip. If you find comfort in wandering through places like this, you can subscribe and return whenever you like. But for now, there is nothing to follow, nowhere to be, and nothing required of you, except to let this quiet night carry you onward, at its own unhurried pace. I arrive without announcement, stepping from shadow into deeper shadow, where wooden buildings rest close together, their darkened forms absorbing sound, and narrow lanes stretch forward with a patient stillness. The ground beneath my feet feels smooth and familiar, worn by countless evenings much like this one, and the scent of cooling wood and distant smoke drifts gently through the air, not strong enough to demand attention, only present enough to be noticed and then released. Lantern light appears in small, careful moments, never overwhelming the darkness, only shaping it. Soft amber glows resting beneath eaves, or behind thin paper screens, where the warmth of interior spaces remains suggested rather than seen. Each light seems placed with intention, not to guide, but to reassure, offering quiet proof that the city is settled, safe within itself, and ready for rest. As I move forward, the rhythm of the city becomes clear in its absence of motion. Shutters are closed, doorways are drawn inward, and the buildings lean slightly toward one another, as if sharing the last warmth of the day before sleep. The night does not feel empty here, only paused, as though life has stepped just out of sight, leaving behind its gentle imprint. A narrow passage opens between two wooden walls, and I follow it without thought, the path bending softly, never revealing too much at once. Above, the sky remains mostly hidden, glimpsed only in thin fragments between rooflines, deep blue and calm, offering no distraction, only depth. The city keeps its focus low, close to the ground, close to the spaces where feet once moved slowly, and where silence now settles comfortably. The sound of water reaches me before I see it, a quiet, continuous murmur, steady and unhurried. A shallow channel runs alongside the walkway, its surface catching faint reflections of lantern light, stretching them into soft lines that tremble and return to stillness. Nothing breaks the rhythm, nothing asks for attention, and even the water seems content to move only as much as necessary. I pause without stopping, standing in that space where movement becomes optional, and the city seems to breathe on its own. The air feels balanced here, neither cool nor warm, and each breath arrives easily, as though the night itself is doing the work for me. Time loosens its hold, moments stretch without length, and the path ahead feels less like a destination and more like an invitation. Farther in, the city waits, calm and unlit beyond what is needed, holding its deeper quiet for later. For now, this arrival is enough. This gentle entry into a place already at rest, where nothing has been interrupted and nothing needs to resume. I continue forward slowly, guided not by purpose, but by the simple ease of being here, as the night receives me fully and allows me to pass through without trace. I drift deeper into the neighborhood, where the houses sit close and low, and the lanes begin to feel like quiet hallways between sleeping rooms, each turn narrowing the world into warm shadows, each wooden wall holding the night in place. Here the lanterns seem fewer, but more personal, set beneath small roofs, tucked beside doorways, or hanging where a hand could lift them without waking anyone, their light falling in soft pools that do not travel far and do not need to. A sliding screen rests shut behind a threshold, and the paper glows faintly, not bright enough to reveal what is inside, only bright enough to suggest that the last movements of the evening have recently finished, that a kettle has been set down, that bedding has been straightened, that a final lamp has been turned lower, until the room becomes a gentle blur of warmth. I pass these quiet fronts as if passing the outside of dreams, aware of life without seeing it, feeling the presence of others in the way the city has arranged itself for them, in the careful placement of wood, in the protected corners, in the calm that comes after routine. A courtyard gate stands slightly back from the lane, framed by dark timber, and when I step closer, the world changes tone, becoming softer, more enclosed, as though the air itself is padded here. Inside the courtyard, the stone is cool, and a single lantern sits near the ground, its glow brushing across smooth rock, climbing briefly up a wall, then fading into the overhang of the roof. A basin waits beside a wooden post, water gathered inside it without rippling, reflecting only a small oval of gold that trembles when my breath passes and settles again when I let it. I continue, and the street widens just enough to allow the feeling of space, while staying intimate, while keeping every sound close. Somewhere behind a wall, a soft clink answers another clink, faint and unhurried, like the last touch of dishes being set aside, and then silence returns immediately, as if it had never left. No voice rises, no door opens, and yet the neighborhood feels full, held together by shared quiet, by the same unspoken agreement that night is for dim light, small movements, and then stillness. A row of homes leans toward a canal, and the water runs alongside the boards with a gentle persistence, not loud, not sharp, only steady enough to make the lantern light feel alive where it touches the surface. I watch the reflections elongate and soften, sliding along with the current, and I feel my thoughts do the same, stretching and releasing, losing the edges that keep them awake. The city does not demand focus, it offers it away, one slow breath at a time. I pass a narrow bridge, wood laid across water, and it carries me quietly to the other side, with no change in mood, only a slight shift in perspective. On the stones near a gutter, the lantern glow gathers in a thin sheen, as if the day's last moisture is still being forgiven, and the light rests there quietly before it disappears. From here, the lanterns appear farther apart, but the warmth remains, caught under eaves, tucked behind screens, resting in the places where hands have learned to keep light gentle. Even the shadows feel intentional, deep and calm, shaped so the night can stay undisturbed. Near one doorway, a small curtain hangs, barely moving, and beneath it, the floorboards are swept clean, as if the entrance was set in order before anyone withdrew inside. A pair of sandals rests side by side, turned inward, and that simple care makes the whole lane feel quieter, as though even objects have learned the habit of resting. The scent of tatami and warm rice lingers faintly, and somewhere deeper within the homes, a single ember of incense seems to breathe, barely there, only enough to soften the night further, until the city feels composed, like a slow exhale made visible. I move on through this domestic settling, through the soft afterglow of evening routines that have already finished, and the more I walk, the more I sense that the city is not asleep in the way a body sleeps, but in the way a room sleeps, prepared and quiet, with everything put away, with nothing left to decide. And as I let my steps slow further, as I let each pool of lantern light come and go without holding it, I feel myself becoming part of that same gentle order, carried forward without effort, toward the edges of the city, where the night opens wider and the world becomes even quieter. The lanes begin to thin, and the closeness of the houses loosens into longer stretches of shadow, where the lanterns feel less like household comfort and more like careful markers along a boundary. I follow the quiet pull outward, moving toward places that feel less lived in and more watched over, not by eyes I can see, but by the steady arrangement of the city itself, as though the night has its own gentle guardianship. A corridor runs alongside a wall, timber posts repeating in a calm rhythm, and the roof above it holds back the open sky, creating a sheltered passage where footsteps would naturally soften. The lanterns here are higher, hung beneath beams, their glow falling in longer cones, touching the ground with a dim certainty, then fading into the darkness between each pool of light. When I step through those alternating bands of warmth and shadow, it feels like moving through slow waves, each one arriving, each one passing, leaving nothing behind. The sound of water returns, clearer now, and the air tastes slightly cooler, as if the city's warmth has been left behind in the courtyards and rooms. A narrow canal runs beside the corridor, edged with stone, and the surface carries the lantern reflections away in thin, trembling threads. I pause at a bend where the water slips under a small bridge, and for a moment I watch the light distort and settle, until the movement becomes soothing rather than noticeable. A wooden railing rests beneath my hand, smooth from years of quiet contact, and even that texture feels slow, like something polished by patience. Farther on, the buildings step back, and the city offers small pockets of open space, gardens tucked behind low fences, moss resting on stone, bamboo dark and still, leaves barely moving, as if the air is choosing not to disturb them. A lantern stands near a gate, its paper sides glowing softly, and the light finds the edges of wet stones, tracing them with gentle highlights. Beyond the gate, the garden path disappears into darkness, but not into emptiness, into a quiet depth that feels safe to imagine and unnecessary to enter. I can sense the shape of the garden without seeing it fully, and that partial knowing is calming, like falling asleep with a familiar room around you, aware of it but not required to look. The corridor turns again, and the city's edge begins to feel closer, not as a hard line, but as a gradual thinning, like a candle flame lowering itself, refusing to go out quickly, choosing instead to fade with care. A tall wall rises beside me, dark wood and pasture, and above it the tops of trees appear as soft silhouettes against deep blue, their shapes steady and unhurried. A watch path runs along the inside of the wall, and though I see no one, I feel the quiet implication of attention. The way the lanterns are spaced, the way the stones are kept clear, the way the night seems organized rather than abandoned. There is no tension in it, only reassurance, a gentle sense that the city is held, and that holding allows everything else to rest. I pass a small shrine set back from the path, simple and dark, with a single lamp at its base. The glow so modest it feels like a whisper. The air here is different, cooler and cleaner, touched by earth and leaves, and each breath feels longer, easier to take, easier to release. Somewhere beyond the wall, water continues its steady run, and the repetition becomes a soft companion, like a heartbeat you do not need to count. I let my steps slow even further, and the space around me seems to widen without brightening, as if the darkness has more room to settle. At the far side of a garden, the path opens toward an outer gate. Not grand, not dramatic, only a darker frame against darker air, with a single lantern hanging beneath its beam. That lantern becomes the clearest point in the world. Warm gold against deep blue, a small steady center that asks nothing and offers calm. I stand with it for a moment, letting its light fall on the stones, letting my thoughts soften around it, and noticing how easily the mind becomes quiet when the scene is simple and complete. The city behind me feels tucked in and safe. The world beyond the gate feels wide and silent, and I realize there is nowhere I need to go next, because the night itself is already enough. So I remain near the threshold, not crossing, not turning back, simply resting in that gentle in-between as the lantern glows steadily, and the edges of the city hold the quiet like a blanket drawn up carefully, preparing the last part of the journey, like everything can finally let go. I stay near the threshold,
as the night settles even more deeply,
and the lantern's glow becomes less a source of light and more a point of calm, steady and patient, asking nothing of the darkness around it. There is no need to move on from here, because the sense of arrival has already softened into rest, and the path has completed itself without needing an ending. Behind me, the city remains composed, its quiet rooms and narrow lanes folded inward, holding warmth and stillness in equal measure, while ahead the open night stretches without detail, offering only space and release. The air feels cooler now, not sharply, but gently, like a reminder to slow each breath a little further. Leaves beyond the wall barely stir, and when they do, A sound is so light it dissolves before it can form a thought. Water continues its steady movement somewhere nearby, unseen and unconcerned, repeating the same calm motion over and over, until it becomes part of the background of being here, something the body understands without listening. I allow myself to stop noticing individual things, the lantern, the stones, the wall, and instead let them blend into a single quiet presence. The night no longer feels like a place I am walking through, but like something I am being held within, supported on all sides by darkness that is gentle and unthreatening. Each breath arrives without effort, pauses briefly, and then leaves just as easily, as if the rhythm has been set and no longer requires attention. Time loosens even further, stretching into something wide and indistinct, where moments no longer line up, and nothing needs to progress. The city does not fade away, it simply stops asking to be perceived, content to exist beyond awareness, settled and complete. The lantern's glow softens at the edges, becoming less defined, more like a warm memory than a visible object, and the contrast between light and shadow smooths into balance. I feel the ground beneath me steady and unmoving, the night above me vast and calm, and between them a quiet space where thought thins and drifts. There is no longer a sense of direction, only of comfort, as if the journey has gently set me down exactly where I am meant to be. The outer gate, the wall, the gardens, and the city beyond them all recede into a shared stillness, present without needing to be held in mind. Nothing changes quickly here, and that slowness feels safe, almost protective. The world has reduced itself to simple sensations: cool air, steady darkness, and the faint warmth lingering at the center of it all. Even the idea of watching begins to dissolve, replaced by the ease of simply being, with no edges sharp enough to keep the mind awake. And so I let the last traces of movement fade, allowing the night to continue on its own, without narration, without guidance, without any need to follow along. There is nothing to remember, nothing to anticipate, and nothing left undone. The lantern holds its glow a while longer, then seems to soften into the dark, not extinguished, just no longer distinct. At the quiet edge of the city, the journey releases itself naturally, and the night carries on, calm and uninterrupted. You can rest now, knowing the city remains exactly as it is, steady and unchanging, while awareness drifts gently away. There is nowhere else to go, and nothing more required, as the darkness settles fully, and sleep is free to arrive in its own time.